wonder about something. What makes an invasion of another country legitimate? Is it the past? The past actions are what determines whether you now have a legitimate right to invade another country? Or is it the present, the misbehavior and or some other actions conducted by representatives of the other country facilitate and necessitate that invasion? I think about invasion and war, and I specifically think about how we talk about those instances. Now, of course, in popular and certainly within localized areas, it is very easy to be able to determine the positive and the negative of conflict. And specifically, when we talk about war, I would venture a guess that there's rarely is going to be a positive uh, element of it. Certainly, if we look at the greater evil of the World War II of the Nazi Germany that ought to have been stopped, that in itself was unnecessary, but under no condition would we be saying that 80 million people who have lost their lives in that particular conflict would be a good outcome. Similarly to the World War I, with millions upon tens of millions of people who have lost their lives, should have been a lesson that would have taught us that maybe the futility of engaging in weaponized and global conflict. Unfortunately, though, the world presently and currently stays in specific mindset that allows certain countries to be able to engage in violent behavior. And certainly, on top of that, it also allows it to be hypocritical in the behavior of criticism towards other countries. It goes without any kind of hidden intent or desire to be able to say, look, you are not supposed to invade other countries. Well, then, that's true. And a lot of countries would like to build upon that particular premise of not invading other countries. What I find it to be massively problematic is the Hippocratic nature of how those statements are being made. So, for example, Britain in its entirety talks about how horrible the actions of Russia happens to be in invading Crimea, which I would be very willing to listen to, because that would be very interesting to say if Britain was not the colonial power that invaded and took over, I don't know, the sun never sets on a British empire. But one could say it is wrong to bring up the British colonial past as a measurement of its responsibility towards the humanity. But then I start thinking about 1982, and in case you don't know what I'm talking about the Falkland Islands. And certainly, if you were to ever look at the map and you would look where the Britain is and when you would look where the Falkland Island is, you would say, wait a second, I don't understand. Why is it that you find that it's okay to take your world colonialized navy to attack Argentina and murder them and take the Falkland Islands and find that to be correct and within the parameters of the international law, but for whatever reason, the behavior and the actions of for example, Russia, that uses exactly the same rhetoric that you have put into place and facilitating exactly the same steps, which is they have a referendum and then the military comes in, and all of a sudden the land no longer belongs to whom it was supposed to belong to. But you know, Britain isn't alone in that. Let's think about this. It's very easy right now to talk about the island of Cyprus. Yet Cyprus was invaded, it was taken, and it was split into parts. And funny thing is, it was done between the NATO allies. Now, of course, one country can easily say, the country who did it was Turkey, that I did it in order to do what? To protect whom? Turkish Cypriots? So they deserved the protection, they deserved the rights. What about other people that you are condemning? What about Kurds who live in your own country? Do they not deserve the the right to be represented? Do they not have the right to be able to, while you were doing those invasions, as a matter of fact, you were prohibiting those people, Kurdish people specifically, to even name their children with Kurdish names? Is that lost in history too? Do we need a scientific research for that particular study? Why is it the irony is persistently staring us into our faces, and yet nobody's doing anything other than talking about or sending out memos? And you know what? 1982 and 1974 is far, far away. Let's talk about 2015. Saudi Arabia leads a coalition into Yemen, whom they bomb, creating one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the world, uses our bases in order to fill its planes, go bomb people. And what's the response by the international or the world community? Nothing. Why? Because we stand for the territorial integrity. This double speak is absolutely the literal cause why those who don't have power are subjected to the violence on a daily basis. Why? Because those who have power have the responsibility to speak at least some sort of a semblance of the truth that is going to be persistent. But if we operate in the idea that only what we say and there is the irony, the great irony, right? We'd say American experiment. Well, that applies to everybody, because clearly, it's not stopping Britain. It's still not stopping Turkey. Definitely not stopping Saudi Arabia. So everybody thinks that they are special. And in that specialty, they are waging war against some people, while at the same time, each and every one of them raising the flag of humanity and protection. In a meanwhile, if you happened to be Palestinian, if you happened to be Kurd, if you happened to be from Cypriot, if you happened to be Argentinian, if you happened to be Assyrian, if you happened to be a million other groups of people, if you happened to be a human being who doesn't have military and power backing you up, well, guess what? You're out of luck.